Good morning, everyone, and welcome to those of you joining from various locations, both in the UK, Europe, but also in Asia. My name is Tim Dillion. I'm the Victorian Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Europe, and Israel, and I'll be your MC today and talk you through the session. So I'm very pleased to welcome you to the event. You were specifically targeted as companies of interest to us for your ability to build an ecosystem and the talent pool and creativity that you bring. Through our analysis, we thought you would be an excellent fit, and that's why we reached out to you. In addition to hearing about what a great place Melbourne is to work and to live, we'll also be sharing with you a range of incentives that the Victorian government and also the Commonwealth Government of Australia are offering to entice you to look at Australia and in particular Melbourne, Victoria. But just don't take our word from it, from government. We have a range of experts with us here today who are going to share their experience of partaking in the Melbourne digital ecosystem. So we have with us today Carolyn Pitcher, who is the CEO of Film Victoria. This is the Victorian state government agency that provides strategic leadership and assistance to Victoria's screen sector. Great to have you with us here today, Caroline. She will be moderating a panel featuring Greg Palstra, Sledgehammer's Melbourne General Manager, and specifically digging into what was the motivation behind Sledgehammer choosing Melbourne and setting up here, and how Invest Victoria has worked and helped with him to do that. Carolyn will also be speaking to Tom Crago, Keywords Melbourne CEO, about why the Irish-based business acquired a Melbourne studio and how Invest Victoria supported the business in the process. We also have with us Craig Harrison, who is the Executive Director in Invest Victoria, and he'll be on hand to answer any specific questions around government's role in supporting these businesses and your business, hopefully in the future, into considering Melbourne. Finally, we'll open up the session at the end to hear from you in a general question and answer session. Please put through your questions in the chat feature. If you like questions that have been put up, show that you like them, and we'll give priority to those questions when we answer those. So let's kick off with a very short video about Victoria and why Melbourne is Australia's digital games capital. So that was just a very short taste of what Victoria is doing in this space, and hopefully generates a little bit of excitement around that. But to dig in a little bit deeper.
Prices are up 16.1% over the past.
And digging in deeper, why Melbourne? So in Melbourne, there's over 170 game studios, representing 53% of the total number of Australia's studios, making us the digital capital of Australia. Some of the digital studios that we have are Electronic Arts Fire Monkeys, Sledgehammer Games, Cockadrillo Dog, and Keywords Australia. Nickelodeon, Pixar, Disney, and Warner Brothers have partnered with local Playside studios to produce branded mobile games in Melbourne. Melbourne's also a fantastic place to live and work. We're renowned for our late night laneway dining, quirky neighbourhoods, and abundance of hidden gems to enjoy in the food, arts, and cultural areas. We have a vibrant calendar of events, live theatre, music, and sports, including the Boxing Day cricket test match, the Australian Open, and the Spring Racing Carnival, where we hold the iconic Melbourne Cup. Victoria is also a beautiful and pristine city with many diverse landscapes. We have beaches, we have ancient forests, and we have snow-capped mountains, all within a couple of hours drive from downtown Melbourne. It's an ideal location for following the sun and crosses a number of time zones across the world. Melbourne time zones bridges the gap between America and European business hours, and Melbourne also shares time zones with the Asia Pacific, making it very easy to do business and headquarter yourself in the APAC in Melbourne. Similar time zones make managing Asia Pacific operations very easy. It will help with your efficiencies and hopefully cut down on too many early mornings or late nights. Next slide. As a games city, you'll see that Melbourne has a strong ecosystem with a large and medium-sized companies working alongside indie studios and solo developers. This ecosystem has seen Victorian studios develop internationally successful original IP, including Crossy Road, Untitled Goose Game, and Moving Out. The Melbourne International Games Week is now in its 7th year and attracted over 85,000 participants when the event last ran live in 2019. The industry body Interactive Games and Entertainment Association has an office in Melbourne. Members include Ubisoft, Sony, Activision, Electronic Arts, Xbox, and Nintendo, along with representatives from Australian independent studios. Australia's first collaborative workspace, created specifically for game developers, The Arcade, is based in Melbourne. We lead in esports with the staging of the Melbourne Esports Open, Australia's biggest celebration of esports. Fortress Melbourne, the ultimate sports games entertainment venue and the first in Australia, is dedicated purely to esports. PAX Oz is the only PAX held outside the US. And with such a strong ecosystem, it's not surprising that Netflix chose to base itself in Melbourne, particularly since its recent announcement into streaming of digital games. So to support all of this, we have world-class talent. There are 20 institutions delivering games-related courses in Melbourne, including 5 spectacular game design institutes. We have over 1,000+ students graduate every year and more tech-capable graduates than both New South Wales and Singapore, making us the leader in the region. Melbourne's superior livability helps attract and keep talent. Pre-COVID, Melbourne was the world's most livable city for 7 years in a row. In addition to this, we have a supportive and committed state government. Through Film Victoria, the Victorian government has been investing in digital games for more than 25 years. The Creative State Strategy 2025 is the Victorian government's next 4-year creative industry strategy. A key action of the strategy is Vic Screen, a standalone 4-year strategy for the Victorian screen industry that has been backed by over $190 million from the Victorian government and sets a bold vision for the screen industry, including digital games. While Vic Screen's actions have broad application across the screen industry, it will focus on and partner with businesses, individuals, and organizations working in the following: digital games development for online, console, mobile, and virtual reality; technical innovation, including computer software design, robotics, and games development; 2D and 3D animation; and visual effects, technology and built infrastructure, including data workflow and storage; esports for competitive gaming; and finally, last but not least, educational institutions and specialist training colleges, all of which support games development. Carolyn will be talking about VicScreen and Film Victoria's funding for digital games in a moment. Here at Invest Victoria, we support studios to get established in various ways. We provide financial incentives, which Craig shall discuss in the next slide. We also provide facilitation services such as helping you find the right building or office location, support for you in securing working visas for your key international personnel through our skilled migration programs, and basically treat us as a one-stop shop for all your needs. Talk to us and we'll do what we can to help you. I'd like to hand over to Craig Harrison, Executive Director of Invest Victoria now, to outline Victorian government incentives and the Australian government's digital games tax offset offer. Over to you, Craig.
Thank you, Tim, and hi, everyone. So as Tim says, we can support your investment in a number of ways, including financial support. So the Australian Commonwealth Government's Digital Games Tax Offset, or the DGTO, commencing on the 1st of July 2022, will make Australia a highly competitive destination and create unparalleled business opportunities for companies keen to expand into the Asia-Pacific region. To recognise this opportunity window, the Victorian Government acknowledges there are opportunities to attract new companies into the existing dynamic ecosystem. And so we're able to offer incentives to help you establish yourself here. We have a new 3-year strategy to accelerate your investment into Melbourne. What we want from you is to commit to establishing your studio, your operation here before the end of June 2022. And in return, we offer incentives based on the number of jobs you employ in Victoria across a 3-year period. The total value of support depends on the number and skills of those jobs. We have an allocation of $6 million of support over 3 years, specifically to support these businesses looking at the offset. So at a federal level, commencing, as I mentioned, on the 1st of July 2022, is the Commonwealth, the Australian Government, is offering a 30% refundable tax offset. These generous benefits offered by the Australian Government are in addition to Invest Victoria's job incentive and Film Victoria's Victorian Screen incentive for digital games. And I'll hand over to Caroline to expand on that shortly. The team responsible within the Australian Government is still undertaking industry consultation to build a robust framework. So details on the qualifying Australian Games expenditure is yet to be finalised. What I can say is a company must spend a minimum of $500,000, that's Australian dollars, to qualify. In addition to the rebate, it's worth mentioning that the federal government has committed to potentially fast-tracking global talent visas, as well as providing temporary activity visas for studios that want to relocate key staff for up to 18 months. So the Victorian Government has a dedicated branch that support you with these visa inquiries and application. And we have representatives who can answer any questions and answers if you want to delve a bit deep into that in terms of on this webinar or following this as well. So great pleasure to hand over to Caroline to speak more about the VicScreen and Film Victoria's games funding programs.
Thanks so much, Craig, and welcome everyone. Good to see you this morning, which is our evening, and I think you can tell that I'm sitting here in a bit of sun. It's a gorgeous sunset here in Melbourne this evening. I wanted to let you know a little bit more about VicScreen, which is the 4-year, close to $200 million strategy for screen-based sectors, which is very much inclusive of the digital game sector, as well as film and television production, animation, post-production, and visual effects. So the Victorian Government is, of course, a strong supporter of the state's digital game sector. In May this year, the Victorian Government launched VicScreen, which, as I said, was close to, I always like to say close to 200 million rather than 191.5 million, 4-year strategy to put Victoria at the forefront of the global screen entertainment boom. Now, not including that is the fact that we are also constructing a very large soundstage to complement our film and television studios here, which will be launching in January next year, which is also an additional $46 million capital investment in film and television screen capital. Attracting international projects to the state is what we do at Film Victoria, and we like to follow a process of creating a strong pipeline of secure work for local screen workers, and specialist businesses is a key focus for VicScreen. The at Film Victoria. Games is of course included, and I think, as was mentioned in the introductions, we have been supporting in terms of investment, cash investment in games development for over 25 years. So we have a new incentive as well as supporting local games IP development, and that new incentive is to attract digital games projects to be undertaken here in Victoria with Victorian-based businesses, whether they're internationally or locally owned and operated. We expanded the Victorian Screen Incentive to attract these projects for digital games to Victoria, and we launched that as a pilot program in spring last year, which is our September last year. We were provided annual funding, which we were fully expended within 6 months, generating well over $28 million worth of work in a very short period of time. Through VSI, Film Victoria provides competitive grants to attract Footloose Games projects that need to spend a minimum of $1 million. That minimum of $1 million we are actually reconsidering now that the federal government has also announced their offset fund, which is going to be launched, I think, as Craig said, on the 1st of July next year. Their minimum spend is $500,000. We are looking to make some changes there to reduce that $1 million down to $500,000 to make it easier for all. So not only would you be getting 30% by the federal government on every dollar spent in Victoria on a digital game, but we would also contribute on occasion up to a capped amount of 10%. This program, as I said, already has generated significant investment in our local games community, and we've been working on some of the world's biggest titles, and we can speak to Tom and also Greg about that shortly. These grants are offered on a project-by-project basis, and as I said, are calculated on a percentage of the expenditure and also the jobs and other benefits that you create within our games community. So we're open, we're financed, and we're ready to hear from you. And you can find me easily on our website at Film Victoria and get in touch with our team that is willing to help you with the application process. VSI, as we've said, can be combined with the federal government offset. So that is 30% from the federal government plus our contribution. And additionally, in terms of our local independent game sector, which is incredibly talented in terms of developing their own games concepts, we have been funding them for over 25 years and have a different program for those games projects, where we have a funding pool that was actually doubled in this last funding period through the strategy that we have spoken about today. So we actually provide development funding between $150,000 to $300,000 for local games development, where the original creative concept is originated from Victoria. And we also have introduced 3 distinct application strands for that local games investment fund, which is prototype, vertical slice and production. And from this, we saw an increase in prototype funding also, which is often where developers find it hard to secure initial investment. So that really enables them to scope out their original creative concept and then get out there to investors and publishers to sell their concept into the marketplace. With that, I will throw back to you, Tim. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. You mentioned that you worked with various agencies, such as Invest Victoria, but also Creative Victoria is another area that operates in this space, and they're in charge of the Melbourne International Games Week. This has become quite a famous event in Melbourne, and now I think deserves its own slide. So I'd like to introduce Fran Curlin, who is a director in Creative Victoria, to share an overview of some of the highlights of MIGW. Over to you, Fran.
Thank you, Tim, and good evening, colleagues, international and local. Yes, certainly we are in our 7th year of MIGW, our 2nd year being fully digital, which has opened up a range of different opportunities. Last year was a little bit rushed. We weren't sure where we were sitting with restrictions. This year we've had much more notice, and I'm excited about some of the new innovations that we've introduced this year. Certainly the slide in front will give you a bit of an overview, but a couple that I'd particularly like to call out. So our GCAP conference, which we present in collaboration with IGEA, who I believe are on the call today. And this is particularly exciting because it will bring into being this year GCAP Invest, which seeks to bring together local developers with platform holders, publishers and investors. And there will be a range of different preparatory events to help studios with their pitching, polishing up on their pitching, which is always very welcome. Our Games for Change, which is our inaugural 3-day conference with a focus on serious games, an area that we see developing significantly over coming years. And I think probably our premier event from a Creative Victoria perspective, Creative Exchange, which brings together fashion and digital games. And I know many people will probably be scratching their heads saying, how can this be? But we will be unveiling an international metaverse project funded by Epic Games, and it draws in 7 fashion designers from Victoria to show how games technologies such as AR and VR can activate and ignite the fashion industry. So do visit the website. We have over 30 events, so there's certainly something in there for everyone. And at the top of the screen, PAX Oz, 3 days of activity and free to join in this year. Thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Tim.
Great, thanks very much, Fran. So look, we're coming to the end of I suppose, the government input into this, and soon we're going to cross over and hear from industry and some of our local entrepreneurs and experts that have excelled in this area. But the message we do want to leave you with from government is that Victoria and Melbourne has a strong economy. We're the strongest in Australia as far as growth rates go, and over many, many years have enjoyed economic growth across the country, and in fact we position ourselves strong, I think, in a global context as well, particularly over the last 18 months where it has been very challenging with COVID. But again, I think that's where our knowledge economy has really shone, and the opportunities in this digital sector are abundant and continue to grow. So without further ado, I'd like to hand back over to Carolyn Pitcher, who will moderate the session where we'll be hearing from Greg and Tom about their respective experiences in setting up and doing business in Victoria. Craig Harrison will also be on hand with any sort of questions around Invest Victoria to have his input there as well. Carolyn, back to you to manage the panel session. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Tim. I do look like I'm glowing in the light of the potential growth of digital games here with this sun setting in my face. But look, I'm here to introduce the real heroes of the digital games sector. It's certainly not the state government. We're just the mere backers behind the real talent. And that real talent is a couple of people here today. Greg Palstra, who is Studio General Manager of Sledgehammer Games in Melbourne. Greg has 20 years experience in and around games. He spent 12 years at Electronic Arts as a development director, where he worked at Visceral Melbourne, EA Sports in Vancouver, and at Fire Monkeys in Melbourne as well. He joined Sledgehammer Games in early 2020 as the studio GM, and he put his running shoes on and his active wear and started to build out that business very expediently. Of course, through COVID, he has managed to expand this team, starting from 30 talented digital games individuals to now 130 over the last year. So that has to be a record-breaking growth spurt there for Greg. And he has helped the team in all disciplines to develop Call of Duty Vanguard and overseen the creation of SHG's new office space in South Melbourne. The other lovely individual I would also like you to meet is Tom Crago, who is the CEO of Keywords Australia. Tom is an entrepreneur, author and artist and creator of globally renowned video game developer based in Melbourne. Tom is the CEO of Keywords Australia Pty Ltd and a new it's a new company here in Melbourne that was established following an Irish-owned Keyword Studios acquisition of 85% of Tom's Tantalus Media. Tom was the CEO of Tantalus at the time, having joined the company way back when in 2002. So you're looking good, Tom, for being in the industry for so long. And I think one of the points that both of you will be making is that the game sector here in Melbourne and Victoria is very well established, very mature, and has solid foundations for future and rapid growth. So I'll start actually with you, if I may, Greg. Tell us a little bit about Sledgehammer Games and the motivation behind choosing Melbourne to expand your Asia Pacific HQ.
Sure, thanks, Carolyn. Yes, so Sledge has been around since about 2009. It's a fully owned subsidiary of Activision and been delivering products against the Call of Duty franchise since its inception. So lead studio on Advanced Warfare in 2014, then we did World War II in 2017, and the team's been flat out delivering Vanguard, which is due for release November this year. Internationally, we employ about 450 people. The majority of those, 300 plus in Foster City in California. And we're actually at about 140 now on last count in Melbourne. So we're still growing rapidly. And there's a brand new studio in Toronto. And so building a Call of Duty product, can take up to 2,000 people to generate that sort of amount of content of that quality. And we deliver one through Activision every year. And there's a lot of competition for the resources that are required to build a game, especially in California. Facebook, Amazon, Google, and other game studios that are in direct competition for the same resources. So Melbourne has a really rich game development history, and especially prior to the GFC, there were lots of large AAA studios here. And post the GFC, when a lot of the large studios moved out, a lot of the talent stayed behind. So moved into smaller game studios, moved into India, moved into other industries, or some of them went overseas. And people like myself, actually, that still wanted to live and work in Melbourne and deliver AAA, but there just weren't as many opportunities, at that time. So Sledge started a small group of engineering outreach here in about 2015, had about 6 people there, and they recognized that with the right product and opportunity, they could really attract the local available talent, back into games in a large way, and people back from overseas to join one of the most livable cities in the world and deliver against a really strong franchise. So that's what I've been doing for the last 18 months. And yeah, the growth that we've achieved and the level of contribution we've been able to make to our first Call of Duty product this year has just been phenomenal.
Thanks, Greg. And I believe that your organisation has been the beneficiary of a significant incentive from Film Victoria, which you're very welcome. And also, and also, it seems like you must have hired 10 people between our 8 a.m. session this morning and our
it's always going up.
Session this afternoon. Good on you. So tell us a little bit more about how you access that right talent and grow so quickly and confidently in terms of these people you've got to have the right talent. You can't just hire anyone, and there are particular layers of experience too that you need to populate your team with. Share some information around how you go about that, Greg.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we were 2 years ago, we're actually at 6, and when I joined, we're at about 30. So we've hired a huge number of people. The first 40 odd people that we hired were all through referrals. So there's strong networks through the gaming industry here. A lot of the people in Sledgehammer, and I'm sure in Tom's organisation as well, will have worked with a lot of other people throughout the industry. And we hired many people through referral into those senior positions. And that really kickstarted our growth. But there were gaps in the local industry and the talent pool that we needed, especially some of the creative side people that we needed at that senior level for AAA. So that's where we utilized our global networks and recruiting, and we're able to identify some key talent around the world that we wanted to bring into Melbourne. And the government actually helped us significantly there in expediting visas, providing letters of endorsement, and really help us navigating that visa process to seed the team with some of the key talent. And then that unlocked the ability for Sledgehammer across all disciplines to bring in that next wave of junior and less experienced candidates. So we either talk to universities and bringing in their graduates, or we're also looking at strong candidates from film and television that don't have games experience, but can be brought in and nurtured under those senior people from around the world. So yeah, that's basically how we've grown to the level we've had and achieved the results that we've had in such a short time.
How did you work with Invest Victoria and others to be able to realise that growth? You've responded in terms of the talent and the visa processes and so on. But what about actually finding your office and, you know, getting the capital assets set up and running?
Yeah, early on, our CEO worked with Invest Victoria basically to reconnect to the location. So he was taken around Melbourne and given great confidence about the support that he was going to get via local government, and also shown the great office spaces that were available. We ended up actually signing one of those offices that we viewed with Invest Victoria. We're nearing completion of that fit out now. The office is sitting there in South Melbourne waiting for us to come back into in a post-COVID world.
I know it's we're all ready to get back together, I think, globally, in fact. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to now introduce Tom again. And Tom, why don't you share your experiences in terms of expanding, which are really different to Greg's. Tell us about Tantalus and how long Tantalus was operating in Melbourne for, and why Keywords decided to come along and sweep you off your feet.
Thank you, Caroline. Well, Tantalus has been around since 1994, which makes us one of the oldest game developers still going in the world, and certainly one of the oldest in Australia. So quite a long tradition dating back to the mid-90s. And I think it's really important to remember that we have a really strong tradition of game development here in Victoria. We've been doing it pretty much since the industry started, with Melbourne House Beam Software, one of the real powerhouses of game development back in the 1980s. And that really was the beginning of the ecosystem. So Tantalus was founded by a few guys who left Beam Software to go off on their own. Other great Victorian companies like Wicked Witch, Taurus, founded at around the same time. And I suppose the environment here really built up around that studio. Tantalus has been a very diverse developer. We've worked on every major platform since the Super Nintendo, worked on most genres. And yes, last year were approached by one or two international suitors, and ultimately we settled on Keywords as our acquirer. And I guess that the history of the company very much is a history of collaboration with the Victorian government. When I started as the CEO, the very first meeting that I had was with the Victorian government to talk about the support that they might be able to offer our expansion, many trade missions overseas to meet with international publishers, and ultimately the big deal to help convince Keywords to come and choose Victoria as its base in this region.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're going to see a little video of some of your work on a very small game.
If it's Skyward Sword, I'm happy to say it was the biggest selling video game in the world in July when it was released. We can't take all the credit, but happy to have participated.
Fantastic. Let's hear it. Well, if that was the biggest game last year, Tom, how are you going to go bigger and better from here? What's the future looking like for Keywords in Melbourne?
We want to go bigger and better, Caroline. That's absolutely the plan. I think it's a real hot spot now, Melbourne, globally for game development, and we're riding the wave. You know, it's big now, and when we see the federal government offset kick in next year, I think it's going to become bigger again. So we're kind of trying to get our ducks in a row at present in terms of expansion, both through hiring and also through acquisition of other studios here, so that we can capitalize on the pretty extraordinary talent pool that exists here. And that certainly involves utilizing our own networks, but also working pretty closely with the educational institutions to ensure that we're getting a good look at the best graduates when they've finished their courses.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we are ripe with talent here in Victoria, particularly given how well our independent game sector has done, not just in terms of their technical and creative skill set, but also their ability to conceptualise new ideas. Thanks so much, Tom. I'm going to throw to a question for Craig Harrison. If you could turn your video on. Your department has pre-approved a significant fund to attract new major studios to Victoria. How do you see those funds complementing the federal government games offset and also Film Victoria's Games Incentive Fund?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I think the key things to mention are that the digital games tax offset will make Australia a highly competitive destination. By Invest Victoria committing to a 3-year strategy, we see it as accelerating further these investments, attracted by the offset, but making Victoria an even more attractive location. We'll aim to provide that incentive in advance of the tax offset, because we want these studios to be well established and ready to apply for the offset, and in fact actually work closely with any business across a variety of fronts to be able to do this. So really helping that step towards the Commonwealth offset.
Fantastic. Thank you, Craig. I'm going to bring Greg and Tom back now and ask you a couple of follow-up questions. One with a long lead time here. This is the epic question. So Victoria has led the games industry with some excellent technology development. FMOD sound effects and authoring tool is used by Bethesda, Disney, Activision, Tencent, and many other games studios around the world. We've got zero latencies, free roaming VR, which has gone global. More recently, the listing of Playside Studios on the ASX, the announcement that Nacon Studios in France has acquired bigger Ant Studios here in Victoria for more than $55 million. Coupled with your own experiences, this suggests there's now a level of maturity in the industry, which I dare say there was before, but we are in boom time. How do you both see this maturity and this opportunity being realised more in terms of attracting global investment here to our beautiful state of Victoria?
Yeah, I think Tom mentioned it before. You know, Melbourne's been building games and game technology for 30 years, right? It's not a new industry, and even though the large AAA studios have come and gone, the people and the talent has been growing and learning, you know, over that period of 3 decades or more. And I think what you're seeing in those companies that you talked about there is just the eventuality of them succeeding over that long period of time and practicing their craft and delivering across multiple studios and multiple franchises for that really long period. So there's a really rich and vibrant game development community, and you can see it in the studios and those companies that are selling their wares around the world.
You know, I've been saying we're a global hub for 20 years, and I've really meant it, because I felt that we actually have had this great kind of critical mass of studios and developers of all kinds, but we're kind of on the cusp of a bit of a turbocharge at the moment. And you know, we obviously saw a bit of a reconciliation or reimagining of the industry after the financial crisis here in Australia, and we're seeing the benefits of that now, where we've had developers who've gone off, set up their own independent studios. We get games like Crossy Road, Untitled Goose Game. We've got that as part of our ecosystem, as well as, well, the biggest of them all, Activision, choosing Melbourne as their home as well.
I'm a big fan of moving out as well, so I'm pretty
good
at that.
We should include that on the list, absolutely.
I'm pretty good at that on the Nintendo Switch. So what's the secret sauce? Is it our environment to be making games? Is it our talent? Is it the way government works with the game sector here? What do you think that the balance is that makes Victoria an absolutely unmissable destination for games investment?
Yeah, certainly from Sledgehammer's perspective, it's been the talent that attracted Sledgehammer here. That was a massive part of why they chose to build out the studio. That level of experience, that seniority across all disciplines, and the way that the team that we've been able to assemble has been able to contribute at that world-class level. And I've built teams in North America before, and these teams are just as strong. The talent's just as good. They would compete in any studio around the world. So the talent's here and ready to be utilised.
I'd add to that the fact that Melbourne genuinely is one of the best cities in the world to live in. I used to travel a lot, 12, 15 times a year. And I always used to ask myself, well, if I could live anywhere, where would it be? If I could set up a studio anywhere, where would it be? And the answer was always Melbourne. And certainly when attracting talent internationally, this city's a really big draw card.
And that really sort of answers this last question that I did have, which is, with your international experience, so both of you have significant international experience, how do you believe Melbourne and its ecosystem rates against some of these other international games hubs around the world?
Yeah, I think the talent's clearly there. The location is fantastic, and with these incentives and the investment of companies like Sledgehammer, we're just hitting that critical mass of studios again. So I think that we have the raw talent at the location to capitalize on, and we're really seeing that starting to take off again in a large way.
And the more the merrier, I think. I mean, if we're able to have other studios, even if prima facie they might appear to be competitors, setting up in Melbourne, building that ecosystem, it helps us all, because even the most dedicated programmer in the world after 4 or 5 years might decide that she wants to do something other than Call of Duty, or Zelda's not enough for one of my artists, and people move around, and we nurture that, we value that.
Rising tide lifts all boats. One boat I missed was actually referring to Greg's video. So should we throw to that now?
Let's have a look at it, Caroline.
And then go to the Q&As.
One of the things that we're really excited about is just our expansion in Melbourne.
So there's this huge pool of really experienced people out there, and we see an opportunity to actually kind of build a really strong team out there in Melbourne that's an extension of the main team that we have here in Foster City.
We've had a really small, kind of really talented, tight team that has focused on really important things over the years, and now our plan is to go expand that tenfold, and we're really excited about building Melbourne up to be a true AAA studio.
We believe Melbourne is an attractive destination, that it's vibrant in terms of its culture and what it has to offer people outside of the workplace, but we also believe it's a magnet for really great talent. And again, we've already seen that in terms of the people we already have working for us in Melbourne, so we can't wait to attract new people into this team.
It's a great team. I think we have a great chemistry. We've worked on a total of, maybe 4 different calls of duty. Aaron said that we're gonna just go full studio in Melbourne. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Melbourne represents for us the perfect combination of a few things: diversity, talent, culture, and lifestyle. So we couldn't be more excited to go into Melbourne in a big way.
So the idea of having people who come in and do an entirely different function, who just think differently, is actually really exciting, because it pushes you to think beyond your normal realm. I think that's awesome.
we're planning to do is get them a new space, somewhere they can move into, somewhere that they can feel proud of, and somewhere that's going to be in keeping with the rest of the amazing facilities and the amazing talent that we've got at Sledgehammer Games.
I liked the positioning of that that video and that spot before we throw to Q&As. So I'm going to introduce Tim again, and thank you, Tim, for moderating the Q&As from the guests.
No troubles. Thanks very much, Carolyn, and thanks, Greg and Tom, for great presentations there, and just such a great energy and feel about this industry. I'm not surprised, Tom. I remember working back in Tokyo many years ago, and the big government supported a trade mission into Tokyo. I think at that time there might have been 8 digital games companies, and what struck me about that, perhaps over any other industry I've dealt with on trade missions, was just how willing the companies were to help each other. You know, they'd invite them to joint meetings, to introduce contacts. It was a really, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats mentality. It was everyone in it together and helping. So great to see that still persists.
And Tim, let's not forget that it was a Victorian trade mission that took us to Nintendo for the very first time. So, you know, they contributed, you contributed in some way to Tantalus being able to develop The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
And Tom, what a great memory that was. I don't think I've been through security as strict and tough as that one visit to Nintendo ever since, even through airports all across the world. So, but it was the start of a fantastic journey, and you know, Nintendo's been a good collaborator with us since. So we might throw open to questions now. We've got some on the chat. I'd encourage those of you participating, if you have any questions at all, to please reach out, put them on the Q&A tab, and we'll do our best to answer them. I noticed there's one already, which reads, you mentioned there's a large number of institutions with up to 1,000+ graduates each year. How responsive are they in their courseware and working with industry to ensure that graduates are industry ready? I might turn to Eleanor Parsons, who is on the call, or one of our Invest Victoria colleagues, to answer that one.
Thanks, Tim. I might field that one. Yes, there's a very strong collaboration between education and industry. I point to an IGEA Education Summit that was held mid-year that brought together both educators and industry to hear from both sides about what their respective challenges are. I personally found it quite enlightening. So we do work very collaboratively. We've got studios like Two Moose, Tantalus, who we've heard from today, Samurai Punk, Big Ant, Dark Shadows, just to name a few. Also the Arcade, which is managed by IGEA, also provides hot desking for students to undertake their coursework in a real environment. And I think perhaps I might ask Greg to jump in here as well, as he's also had some first-hand experience in the student engagement world. Thanks, Greg.
No problem. Yeah, we've engaged with a number of the unis and institutions. RMIT has actually invited us to be involved in redesigning their curriculum, so we'll have a direct impact on the students' outcomes there and how industry ready they are. Monash has a really well-established industry-based learning program, of which we're taking co-ops and interns in for 6-month programs starting next year, and Swinburne's redesigning their work. What is it? I can't remember, the WIL scheme, a similar scheme to IBL, so we're going to engage with them as well. And another really good relationship has been with AIE. They've involved us in their showcase. We've actually got a couple of lecturers working for us now as well. So we've been able to get in and really make sure that when their students are presenting their end of year showcase, that they're presenting it in a way that resonates strongly with industry. So the relationships with the local institutions are very strong, and I think just getting better all the time.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Now, the next question we have here is, I think, one for government. Craig, this might fit with you, but It's around that this is an industry that moves very quickly when needed, and government needs to keep pace with that. The question is if I wanted to establish a new studio in Victoria, what's the time frame from the commencement of our discussions, and how nimble is the Vic government in this regard, or state government is what they've said? Craig.
Yes, thanks, Tim. And a bit like outfits, we should have compared our backgrounds before we joined the call, because I think we got the same one, but more creative next time. Looks like we're in the same studio, but we're not. We're a long way away from each other. So yeah, I mean, times will vary on each by project. So it's difficult to say. I mean, there can be some real differences. I think the key points to say are that the earlier we can start the conversation with you, the better. We are nimble, we can move quickly. And I should say we offer support from anything from market entry to building the business case, to introductions to potential clients, suppliers, planning, regulation, and it's all free and confidential. On the incentive side, we have the pre-approval to support companies, so that's really reducing time it takes to go through the process. So it's quite a quick process now. So yeah, what we're really doing is, I guess the call to action is the earlier the better that we start the conversations, the quicker it will be, and we can help through all those steps and the process.
Thanks, Craig. And you comment about us being far away. We are indeed far away. What I'd like to point out to all the participants on the call is that the government has 23 offices around the world, and we work in your time zones. We have offices in China, in Japan. I'm sitting here from London, covering the UK and Europe. And we've got teams to support you. So, when you want that information, when you want to engage with us, we are in your markets and can do it in your time zones. And we want to do this as quickly as possible. So next question. There's a question here that says, what kind of support is provided from Victoria to set up a new gaming company? Do we have a taker for that? We covered some of it, I think, in the presentation, but perhaps a summary. Apart from what I just mentioned, our international offices are available to talk you through and direct you to the right people. Does anyone want to take that one?
I mean, Tim, I just in terms of I was touching on some of the support we can provide. So it's in above of what I've said. It is helping towards advice, support, guidance around the labour market's availability of skills and talents, introductions to clients, partners, stakeholders, accessing parts levels of government, and ongoing investor support as well, I should add. So it's about trying to attract companies here, but also into Victoria, but also helping them once they've set up here and grow and expand. It's pretty much, we've got quite a large team to do that as well. And we've got even a dedicated team towards property planning and regulation. So it's pretty much whatever you might need, we can probably help and support in terms of that. And as you say, Tim, it's here as well as our 23 offices overseas as well. And the additional thing that we haven't really mentioned is around exporting once a year as well. And again, that's through the overseas offices and helping you access other markets and use Victoria as a springboard. So I think that's pretty much covers probably everything you can imagine, I think.
Yeah, there's some great points. I like the exporting point, Craig, as well. I've helped many companies in market on these trade missions that have, you don't immediately think of them as being Melbourne companies. They're from, the US or Europe or wherever. But from our point of view in government, once they've set up and established an office in Victoria, they're one of our own. So we'll support them in the overseas markets. We've got another question here, which is, what is the legal status for operating games of skill gaming segments? I'm not totally clear on that. I don't know if there's some clarification, but I'm wondering, is this in relation to gaming or gambling type? Do we have any takers on that? Or perhaps the person might clarify what's meant by skill gaming segments.
It sounds like it's talking about kind of gambling Tim, but where it's not a game of chance, but notionally of skill. Different segment to ours, I suppose.
Yeah, and you know, like those are across the world, you know, heavily regulated. But you know, again, if you've got
presumably federally
questions,
in Australia as well, I guess it'd be regulated.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Tom. But again, we can take that questions on notice if they want to reach out with a little bit more detail behind that question. You know, we'd be happy. That's what we do. We're basically effectively consultants to you for free. So if there's legislation behind that that you're interested in, we'll find it and share it with you. That's all the questions that I can see so far. Are there any last ones anybody wants to chip in or post? Okay, well, that's all of the questions. All that's left for me to do is to thank our panelists. Tom, thank you. Greg, thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your experience. And I know, you know, as a government, we reach out to the industry and the likes of you when you guys come in, and I'm sure at different times you've benefited from the experience of others in the industry. So we'll continue to do that. And thank you. Fran, thank you from Creative Victoria. That was fantastic. Craig Harrison from Invest Victoria, thank you for your input. And of course, Carolyn from Film Victoria, who did such a great job of moderating the panel session. Thank you. And thank you to all of our attendees and participants from across Asia and Europe. It's really appreciated. We're here, we're open for business. Come and talk to us, get a piece of Melbourne. Thanks.
Thank you so much, everybody.